So he did. He did the rehearsal. He's done that on HBO.
Oh, the rehearsal.
That's
Yes.
2 seasons. Both seasons are absolutely incredible. He did another show on Paramount Plus that I'm now forgetting the name of. It was more of a scripted show with Emma Stone, which was okay. But the first 2 seasons of the rehearsal are some of the craziest TV shows you've ever watched in your life.
I mean, he is topping himself with that awkward humor tip for sure. It's just a completely it's as uncomfortable as like the Chair Company and anything that Tim Robinson has been doing. I think you should leave type stuff. But that's neither here nor there. We are live at 4:00 on a Wednesday. Had some technical difficulties yesterday, but we press on. We're back now, baby. Live on YouTube. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the Bengals win, as I alluded to in the title of this fair show. That, man, we will talk about that at length. We will talk about the Bears at the trade deadline and then what to look forward to against the Giants this Sunday. A little softball, a nice, hopefully tune up for this Giants team, for the Bears against this bad Giants team, that is, before their schedule starts to get real rough. And then we'll talk about the NFL as well. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction 2025 this weekend. Surprises along the way. Did you have a nice Halloween, Ross?
I did. Halloween was,
Alexa,
Halloween
play November has come by the Gorillas.
Yes. Halloween was very chill. Happy to see the little kids and all their amazing costumes. As I get older, I aside from the usual 20 Spider-Mans you see, I don't know what the heck these kids are anymore. They're anime characters, Fortnite characters.
It was all K-pop Demon Hunters this year.
I don't know what the hell's going on.
I can't. I'm like, oh, they're dressed cool. They must be K-pop Demon Hunters. I saw a lot. My kids and I were Toy Story, and then it warmed my heart to see, Pau Gasol go out with Vanessa Bryant and the Bryants as Toy Story characters too. I'm like, all right, this is very popular. Like Pixar's always, fair game. But then, your son wanted to be a dirt bike rider. Like, it's all over the place. But I like the originality. I respect it. Let's get into it. Let's talk Bears to begin the show. And it was a wild ride. That was one nutty game. Talking about that Bengals game this past weekend, which is still fresh in my mind, just as far as the ups and downs and the razzle dazzle throughout the game from Ben Johnson and company. Like, it was making the rounds on Twitter just how the NFL is tweeting out these, this reel of all these Bears highlight plays where there are all these trick plays, which we have not seen in a long time. Certainly didn't see it with Matt Eberflus. A 47-42 win for the Bears, and it certainly could have been more. Still a ton of questions. Like, you saw 2 woefully bad defenses. You saw old man Joe Flacco go for almost 500 yards passing. Just Bears could not get a stop, seemingly, besides a couple here and there when it really counted. By, Caleb Williams, by all accounts, looking at the quarterback, that's always a question every week. He would look much better showing than in Baltimore for sure. Really could have had at least one more touchdown. It could have been a 50 burger for the Bears. Mm-hmm. When you cut that like Rome drop, at least that miscue, whatever you're calling it. Going back to the fourth quarter, just the end of the game, that ultimately, the Bengals go and they go and they score. They kick an onside kick to get the ball back, which was just nuts. But I submit there was still something real fishy about when that drive for Flacco and company late in the fourth, there was 2 defensive touchdowns called back on the Bears. Like, get out of here with that. Something was up. Bogus interference call. Tremaine Edmonds being called down, but then the Bears ultimately not running out the clock effectively. It looked like Britton Brown just like slid to run the clock. I would have liked him to just get the first down. But that's neither here nor there. Again, so the Bears defense was terrible. 470 yards allowed from Flacco. Special teams allowing that opening kickoff touchdown, allowed 45 yards per kick return. This has been a recurring theme throughout the season, how bad they are. The onside kick recovery, there was one miss from K-Row. Once again, I'm in the Jake Moody fan club. Bring him back. The positives, pretty nice for defenders of Ryan Poles when you think of Colston Loveland having his breakout game with a couple scores. That game winner was nice. Him getting the targets that he deserved and warranted. One like real dart from Caleb Williams, which was awesome. Talking about accuracy from the young quarterback. Kyle Monungai was incredible. The 7th round pick going off for 176 yards, averaged almost 7 a carry. 576 yards total for the offense. That really boosted them up into the NFL total averages. Number of big plays. Again, Caleb caught a pass for a touchdown. He had more yards in the game than Rome. And Rome's dad won't shut up about it. The reverse in there, the razzle dazzle again was alive and well. Could have easily, again, been 50 plus from the Bears, but 47 you'll take. Where are you at with this team after the win? It's settled in, a few days later, but yeah, more questions than answers, or what were a few of your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think more questions about the defense, right? Giving up that many points, giving up that many yards, giving up a big lead at the end of the game there. I think we certainly have a lot of questions about this special teams situation and how much of a disaster that's been. You give up an opening kickoff to start the game. Cairo Santos is not able to hit field goals in a league where Cam Little breaks an NFL record for what he does. The coverage team has been bad. Duvernay is not able to get you proper field position. When you get good field position, it comes back on a hold from Jahdae Walker. So there are issues on special teams and the defense. I think when we look at the defense, we knew their secondary was going to be a mess. They have tons of corners out. C.J. Gardner-Johnson got there. He played well, but you're still missing Jalen Johnson. You're still missing Kyler Gordon. Tyreek Stevenson was coming off an injury. He looked terrible in that game. You're missing a couple guys, and there's no pass rush being able to generate even on Joe Flacco. There's no rush up the middle. Grady Jarrett, for the most part, has been a disappointment. You lost Dale for the season with an injury. Big play by Austin Booker. You're going to see him a lot more, as we go to the season. But it was also the late game execution. Granted, I think that the refs bailed him out again. I don't know anymore what is a pick six, what's not a pick six, how the momentum is when a guy catches the ball and when he's touched and so on and so forth. That was a huge call in the game. But I think the positive is, and I think Ben Johnson alluded to it, even when everybody's sphincters tighten up near the end of the game, I think the Bears at this point are showing that they are the most, they're the team that, especially on offense, are composed and still are not panicking and can get the football down the field and get them in position to win the game. And that is a credit to your head coach. That's also a credit to your quarterback. And this is where I think we need to show Caleb Williams some love this week. And I know he's been crapped on, so to speak, for his performance the last couple of games. I thought he was really good. Adam Archuleta, notwithstanding whatever the hell he was talking about the entire game, and ball placement and things like that. There's so much more nuance. But what Caleb did throughout the game, and then, of course, on that last drive, and that absolute seed to Colson Loveland that ended it with the game-winning touchdown was super impressive. I know a lot of people caught it, but that little sly smile that Caleb gave to somebody on the sidelines before he goes out there with 40-something seconds left and goes there. And this kid kind of got ice water in his veins, and he's played a lot of football games like this in his career. This game reminded me so much of a classic Saturday night, 11 o'clock Central Time, Pac-10 football game that he's been a part of, where it's like 52 to 51, and whoever's got the ball last is going to win this game, and that's exactly what happened. So, again, like we talked about last week, and like Ben Johnson said this week, you don't apologize for winning football games in the NFL. You take them however you can get them. That's a big win. They're 5-3. You get the Giants coming into town this weekend. Hopefully you can take care of business in Soldier Field, and then your playoff chances start to really boost up and your ability to win maybe 9 to 10 games this year. So for me, the positives were the young guys and the future of your team. Caleb Williams was poised and composed, showed a lot of composure. Colson Loveland looking absolute beast out there. He looked like Michigan Colson Loveland while they drafted him. Dominant. We talk about, we barely talked about Kyle Monangai, who was absolutely phenomenal and just a battering ram out there. He looked like a young Marshawn Lynch, just blasting through guys. And
angry runner of the week. He did look angry like Marshawn.
Yeah. You got the scepter. Yep, you got the scepter from Kyle Brandt from NFL Network. And daddy nonsense aside, Roman Dunze had some bad drops. But also you saw what the Bears dropped today or yesterday, whatever it was today, I think it was in their social media clip, he was blocking his ass off out
Blocked
there.
his tail off the whole game.
Goodness, yeah, absolutely, and that is a credit as well. These guys are fighting, and they fight for each other, which kind of tells you the chemistry in that locker room is really high right now, despite the fact that they're not still firing all cylinders, and that's what you have to be. That's what you have to be excited about going forward.
Yeah, it's the bad. Obviously, we talked about it and alluding to the good, the bad, the ugly. The bad may have been the special teams. It's a toss up between the defense. The bad may have been the defense, I should say. The ugly was probably the special teams, which really an onside kick, pretty inexcusable at that point in the game, and allowing the opening touchdown, which a big difference maker. But the offense, again, I talked about them sort of juicing up their stats going after this game against the Bengals. They're 6th in points per game, almost 27 a game was the last time you said that. Mm-hmm. Yards per game, almost 380 at 4th. Rush yards per game, now 144.4 in 2nd. Sacks allowed, tied 6th fewest, 14. Credit to, you talked about the blogging of Roman Dunze. I completely agree. Like, it's a team sport. Sometimes star players are just not, it's not going to be in the cards for them, especially in that position that Caleb Williams is in, where he was dealing like he was, where Loveland got really, big involved. DJ Moore, obviously Monunge, they just were able to lean on him so heavily. This line, Darnell Wright, we talked about every week how he's making that all-pro case. If not just Pro Bowl, he will definitely be Pro Bowl, I should say, if not all-pro. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the slide, like Theo Benedict, just really, when you think about Braxton Jones and how this team started out, to make that change is enormous for any team, let alone the Bears, and saying, oh, this is just doomed them repeatedly. But that interior has stayed right. I think they cleaned up most of the, miscues, false starts and everything that Jonah Jackson and company would commit, any holds or anything like that. But going back to Caleb Williams, man, he's feisty, and I wish he'd put that mouth guard in, right, just in case he gets hit, man. But he's got that swagger in him, and
you're such a dad boomer.
Yeah, I am, I know, but I love this stuff. The chewing on it, but I'm also like, oh, God, don't get hurt, don't get concussed. Yeah. He's really he balled out. You get like 1 week, you get the Caleb who's like, oh man, he's like the Caleb of last year. He's just growing. He's a young NFL quarterback with so much talent. We saw it all on display. And you talked about how now, as opposed to Eberflus's team like last year, in the last couple of years, in these games where they would just give it away, this offense is so poised under Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. And I had no doubt they would be able to get into field goal range. Just to try that. I didn't really have faith in Kara Santos to make said field goal. But then Colston Loveland breaking that to like the Bengals just could not tackle all day long. You take advantage of that and then kick it away and then, force the defense to finally make one more stop. Even then, you're holding your breath on a Hail Mary, something like that. Joe Flacco may pull out some magic. But the positives are there. And again, pointing to the trade deadline, we can kind of segue to now, and you get a little help when Deo goes out. You get Tryon Shoyinka from the Browns, who had some good success. He didn't do anything with the Browns, but had some good success with the Buccaneers. Get him for a 6th rounder. That fills a need. I mean, this guy's still huge. He's 26 years old, I think. It's a no-brainer to bring in a body after the terrible news of Deo being out for the season with a torn ACL. It's like a Band-Aid, but you think rotational wise, he'll figure to get in there with Sweat and Booker and the rest of these guys, and Terry, and get some pressure. And then standing pat, it is what it is. I think that the defensive backs need to get healthy. Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon and company, and Brisker and all of them, just really, it's going to be a different game, I would think, Sunday. But this Bengals game, man, it was bananas. It had everything you wanted as a football fan, I feel like, back and forth. And again, pointing to the young guys, it is encouraging to see Kyle Monunga when you thought, oh boy, DeAndre Swift is out. What are we going to get out of the 7th rounder? It was unbelievable. It was like what we saw kind of similarly from the NFL standpoint. Rico Dowdle come in and spell Chuba Hubbard, and like, oh, can we go back to DeAndre Swift now with Kyle Monangai playing the way he does? And I'm not sure if Swift is completely healthy going into Sunday, you think about a 50-50 split almost, or just really it helps open up the playbook and like a thunder and lightning punch that you were so jealous of with Detroit, with Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Look at what you got now. And again, this offensive line is like a top 5 unit right now. So there are positives, but they are all offensive, overwhelmingly offensive, which is pretty crazy to say as a Bears fan.
Yeah, I was going to say it's something that we certainly aren't used to as a fan base. We're used to black and blue division and winning games 17-13 and the defense making plays and the offense just kind of coming along for the ride. And right now it's the exact opposite. And, to be honest with you, I'll take it. If they're going to win 9-10 games this year and it's led by your offensive head coach and your quarterback in his second season and the weapons he has around him, and Kyle Monangai becomes a dude and Loveland shows that he's the reason why he's a top 10 overall pick, and you're going to get Luther Burden back on the field this Sunday and you're running crazy end around plays and DJ Morris is scoring off of reverses and sweeps and throwing touchdowns. That's exactly what I want. I mean, they're exciting right now. I think they're one of the 5 most exciting teams in the NFL just because you don't know what the heck they're going to do from week to week on offense. And you hit it on the head. That offensive line right now, especially coming off the bye, has really hit their stride. This running game has got to be cooking right now. I expect DeAndre Swift, he was limited in practice today, to come back out there and be ready to go on Sunday. But you don't need to have him share the load for the entire game. Now you can really start to have more trust in Kyle Monangai and ease him in. And guess what? This team that's coming to town on Sunday, the Giants, they are 31st in the NFL in rushing yards given up. They stink in terms of the yards giving up. They're also 28th. They're 28th in rushing touchdowns this year given up. And I'm not a weather guy, but I got an app. You can fast forward and look ahead to Sunday. Yeah. It's going to be about 36, 38, maybe a little wintry mix. That sounds like Kyle Monangai's music to me. That sounds like give him the football for another 20 times and just bury this Giants team. But yeah, they're excited. It's fun, and I'm happy to see it. Going back to Caleb Williams, even through all the adversity and the ups and downs that he's had so far halfway through the season, this guy's on pace to throw for over 4,000 yards in the season. That will shatter a franchise record for the most passing yards ever from a quarterback to Chicago Bears. He took care of the football on Sunday, which was huge. He's still doing a good job limiting his sacks. I just feel like he's growing every single week, which is all we can ask for. And hopefully he continues that trajectory and this offense continues to hum along. And to be honest with you, if the defense kind of is what it is for the rest of the year, I'll take that. You go back in the lab in the offseason and you tweak it, you fix it up a little bit. I'm happy that Ryan Poles didn't mortgage first-round picks, second-round picks for Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson. We saw Quinton Williams get traded to the Cowboys yesterday for a first-round pick. I'm happy they didn't panic and mortgage a little bit of the future for that. Ian Rappaport had a report 30 minutes ago that says that Asante Samuel Jr., who is coming off a pretty horrific spine injury, is going to be auditioning in Chicago next Tuesday. Yeah, that's sure. Why not? Like, kick tires on all these kind of guys and see if you can piece it together to get through this year. And then hopefully, if the offense continues to do what they're doing, then you say, all right, bang. Let's go for it. Let's make a big splash move, whether it's in the draft, via trade. Free agency is going to be a little bit tough to see if now we can really impact this defense and make it a little bit better so they can kind of balance out and catch up to this offense.
I think, like you pointed to, you can't apologize, like what Ben Johnson said. You don't apologize for a win in the NFL. And Joe Flacco was brought in to a very good situation with this Bengals offense, with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, with Chase Brown, all like very talented players, comparable skill sets to, the skill position guys for the Bears. So when you go ahead and you have a bad outing like that, obviously I blame Dennis Allen. I blame the entire defense for not really getting much of a pass rush. Austin Booker and Sweat, a couple tackles, a couple key sacks aside. But again, going into they've played much better at home. We see within the Bears, it's going to be rocking in Soldier Field. It's going to be colder. Run the rock. Certainly keys to the game. Easy to say. Kyle Monunga and DeAndre Swift were both, in the injury report today, just questionable, limited participants in practice. That's fine. Just get healthy ahead of Sunday. Even Britton Brown, nice breath of fresh air getting in there too, and getting his first career NFL touchdown. But I have full confidence in this offensive line to scrap it out and take advantage of it, create those opportunities for Caleb Williams. And the defense to sort of, it's a get right game for them. They're not going to give up 42, mark my words, to this New York Giants team on Sunday. That's for damn sure. We'll make some side bet at the end, perhaps. But that said, I'm fine leaning on the offense. If the script is flipped like this, then let it be, right? If you're still dealing with some injuries, and I echo everything you said, where you don't need to mortgage the future just for we want this one edge rusher. We want Hendrickson. We're going to trade a first and a second rounder. I don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. I think, you kick the tires on a cheap, sort of stand in, like we talked about with Troy Shorinka, excuse me. Mm-hmm. And then you go from there, the same with Gardner Johnson, helps fill some depth in the secondary, get some rentals for the year. And then keep that draft capital, and then look to really, you pointed to on Twitter, Ross, make a splash in free agency in the offseason, perhaps, to get that edge rusher who could really complement. If Montez Sweat's the guy, that's a question going forward too. Who's going to be opposite of him? And then, hopefully you're getting a healthy Austin Booker, and hopefully the interior of Dexter. Those guys stay around to provide pressure as well. But, looking again to this Giants game, if it's cold and blustery, just the fundamental, just ground and pound, run the ball, throw when you need to. And Jackson Dart, he's shown he's been no slouch, and he's going to take some chances. But without Scatterboo, the real hurt at running back when they're middle of the road rushing team. Get this team to 6-3 when you have to fast forward to the rest of this Bears schedule, looking beyond the Giants. You don't want to look past them necessarily, but then you get Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, all back to back, which are all, winning football teams right now, rolling. So
here
we are.
You're getting polar opposites from quarterbacks. And I do kind of want, before we get off that Bengals game, you got to give a little bit of credit to Joe Flacco as well. And he even did this
100%,
to the Pittsburgh Steelers, even before the Bears. Joe Flacco's been in this game, in this league for a long time now. That guy is a pro's pro, and he's been everywhere. He's seen everything. He's a Super Bowl champion quarterback. He has burned a lot of teams before. This guy is a professional, and you give him a lot of credit for what he did on Sunday. He knows what to take, when to take what the defense is giving him, and he did just that. He was doing a lot of YOLO 50-50 balls down the field, and also credit to the Bengals. Listen, T. Higgins, before he went out with the injury, he was just mossing dudes. Like the coverage was there, the coverage was sticky. He was just making the football. He was just catching the football. So the Bengals also made plays as well, especially on offense, which is why you have to really feel for them, because they have had a pretty good offense all year. Their defense is just atrocious. There's a chart that I saw this morning of the top 10 players in the league with the most missed tackles in the season. And the top 3 names are Bengals players. So they are that bad. And I think all 3 of them missed tackles on that Coastal Loveland touchdown at the end of the game. So credit to Joe Flacco. Now you get a guy in Jackson Dart. He is very, very different than Joe Flacco. This guy is still very green right now. And, ever since Malik Neighbors went out and Scatterboo went out, their offense has been kind of sputtering a little bit. They obviously they are coming off a loss as well. And their season is kind of spiraling a little bit. They lost to Kansas City. He wants to take off. He wants to run. I think he has 5 rushing touchdowns or something like that so far this season. So he definitely wants to run the football and keep going. They lost 34-24 to the 49ers this past week, but he did get a rushing touchdown. And that game wasn't as close as it was. There was some garbage time points in there as well. So, he hasn't cracked over 200 yards passing in a couple weeks. If you look at it, if you're Dennis Allen, you maybe play a little bit more zone this week,
right.
But also you probably want to blitz him a little bit, especially with the CJ Gardner-Johnson and guys like that. And you want to heat up Jackson Dart and make him uncomfortable in the pocket and make him make some mistakes. He hasn't thrown an interception in a couple of weeks because they're trying to keep the training wheels on him. This is the week in Soldier Field with that crowd. You want to see him make some mistakes from the pocket and get the Bears back on the short field again and get them back on that turnover side of things again. They did get an interception, obviously, last week, but the week before that in Baltimore, they were lacking. You want to see them get back up near the top of the league again in takeaways and make Jackson Dart very, very uncomfortable in a hostile environment in the cold as well.
One consistent for that defense is still the turnovers for sure, and Flacco with a fumble in that game too, I believe. And credit to Ben Johnson and how this squad has come together to win 5 games. Took Ben Johnson 8 games to win 5 games, and think about the team around him and winning these games in very close situations. I just credit, you don't apologize for wins, and think about how you looked at this Bears team when they dropped the first couple and how they've turned it around and faced some adversity, bring that over into a home game against the Giants. Yeah. And I remember to your point about Flacco, who is, an enigma. And I remember seeing him in 2023 in Cleveland, beat the Bears and throw for 375 yards and overcome 3 interceptions to beat the Bears on a field goal. He's always like that guy who I'm like, is he like borderline Hall of Famer? It's already just so diluted. It's just too many guys in there, but like, dude, he is just as a rental at this point, playing at this level. He's just an incredible player, but perhaps Ravens retired jersey worthy at that point. But again, Giants game, it's a must win game for the Bears when you think about keeping this momentum going forward, and then the tough sledding going ahead on the quest to maybe get a playoff bid, because it's real tight in the NFC North right now. They're second in the North, the way things are shaken out as we kind of go to the rest of the NFL. I mean, we know how good that the Green Bay Packers have been at 5-2-1. Jordan Love, decent, but that loss to the Panthers will stick out. Like, this team is beatable, and the Bears will certainly think about that as they've faced the Packers in a few weeks, or I should say December, I think. And Detroit still looking beatable as well, even though they're in second. I should say, the Bears are in third in the NFC North right now. Vikings at 4-4. JJ McCarthy looked really good coming back. Let's sort of dive into just these takeaways as far as what we saw again from this past week. The Eagles were on a bye. They're at 6-2. Tampa improved to 6-2. The Seahawks 6-2, looking really sharp.
They look great.
That Bills Chiefs game was great, but the edge goes to Josh Allen and company, and how he outplayed Patrick Mahomes and the rest of that team. For that matter, it's getting to be do or die for the Kansas City Chiefs at 5-4 when they're chasing the Broncos at the top of the division at 7-2, and then the Chargers, who look really good on offense, at 6-3. Colts 7-2. We haven't even really talked about the sort of impact that the owner's daughter that I'm thinking of, who's on the sideline, who's really involved, and just an incredible story there. And then the Patriots, talking about the AFC East and the Bills sort of owning that division for a long time. The Patriots and Drake May are 7-2 right now. It's just nuts. And then the AFC North again, the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's some life in the Aaron Rodgers, man, and it will be no love lost when the Bears play him. But what else did you take away from sort of what we saw in week 9, and now we're in week 10 already?
We are in week 10 already. Yeah, absolutely. A big win by the Vikings, right? I think the chaos in the NFC North is the big takeaway from us, because it does open up the division a little bit for the Bears. Right now, the Bears are 0-2 in the NFC North. They haven't played an NFC North team in a while. Obviously, their first couple losses were to the Vikings and the Lions, and that was a crazy game right there, what the Vikings were able to do. But it opens the door for the Bears in the back half of the season. You got to beat the teams in your own division if you want to see a playoff berth and maybe even potentially win the division. But at the very least, get to playoffs, because right now the Bears are the 8th seed because they will lose a tiebreaker to the to the Lions, excuse me. But there's a lot of football left. I think the Packers have at least 2 or 3 of those losses once a season, where some crap team comes in. That team is a 10-point underdog. They show up in Lambeau Field, and all of a sudden you're watching Red Zone, and then you just see Jordan Love running around in circles, just throwing nonsense up in the air, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, what? The Panthers won? And credit to the Panthers. They have had a rebound season. Bryce Young was not very good, but they found something in Rico Dowdle, who every team in the NFL, including the Chicago Bears, could have had Rico Dowdle if they wanted him, and he goes out there for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns on Sunday in Lambeau Field and knocks them off. So credit to them. I think also, you look around the NFC, the 49ers, despite their injury situation, just keep winning football games because they are leaning heavily on Christian McCaffrey, who, knock on wood, is staying healthy. That guy had 28 rushes for over 100 yards, and he added in like 5 or 6 receptions. He is just carrying that team right now as they're trying to piece this thing together to go to the playoffs. I also, as you looked on the opposite side of the conference, I thought that was classic Pittsburgh Steelers football, and I thought the Colts played right into their hands. You get Daniel Jones going on the road. He turned the football over. They were able to really shut down Jonathan Taylor, and everybody was wondering what's going on with the Steelers defense. Where's TJ Watt? How come they've been struggling all year? And that looked more like the Steelers of old, and they're a very dangerous team. And then you start to see the cracks in the armor of this Colts team, who wants to be a first-round bye team, but it's like they're the 7-2 team that you're like, I don't really know if I quite believe in them or not, because of stuff like that. And then to me, the 2 later 3 games, Buffalo is just a superior team at this point. Maybe that game is different if it was in Kansas City, but if you look at the Chiefs, to your point that you said, they are also the 8th seed right now in the AFC. They got to pick it up. You're 5-4 right now. You're looking up at a lot of teams, and you've got to kind of flip the switch a little bit sooner than later. And they still have some tough games, especially some tough division games on their schedule. But credit to Buffalo for a big win for them and kind of riding the ship themselves, especially after a couple losses that they had. And then Seattle, Sam Darnold, I know Washington is reeling. Washington's whole team has been decimated with injury.
Rough.
But my goodness.
Jaden Daniels injury. Oof.
It is. It was bad. And him being out there at the end of the game like that, and to get that injury is also very questionable. But Sam Darnold now, 330 yards, 4 touchdowns, and they're 6-2. He now puts himself into that MVP conversation. He's kind of up there with the Josh Allens and the Drake Mays and a couple of those guys. Then the Monday night game, I don't know why the Cowboys make that trade for Quentin Williams and give up a first-round pick. Nothing that they bring in at this point is going to be able to fix that just absolutely atrocious defense. When you let Jacoby Brissett do that against you and every other quarterback this season do that against you, I think it was just a pure panic move by the Cowboys. I thought they should have licked their wounds for the season after the Parsons trade and regrouped in the offseason. But they look a mess on defense, and even the offense just couldn't quite get it going as well. That's just a bad loss for them against a Cardinals team that I don't think is very good.
Yeah, the Jets, talking about the trade deadline, they traded Sauce Gardner to the Colts. Colts, just thank you, we'll take him. Quentin Williams, and they're just embracing that we're terrible, full rebuild. Let's go again. And you feel for the guys who do not get traded on that team, like the Garrett Wilsons and such, and Breece Hall. And it's a tough situation for them. But going back to what you said about Pittsburgh beating the Colts, and it was Carly Ursay, Gordon I was thinking of, who's just really involved and awesome to see on the sidelines. Carrying on the Ursay legacy, but forcing 6 turnovers against the Colts are at the top of the AFC, or towards the top. Really incredible, and you see the resilience. There's some just very spicy, like 7-2, 6-2 teams right now. Like I really, again, like you alluded to with Sam Darnold, like this offense from the Seahawks is nuts. I mean, JSN had 129 yards if he didn't get in the end zone. They still put up 38 yards and put up, 4 touchdowns from receivers who had not had anything all season long. The Rams are at, Matt Stafford, talk about MVP conversation, and he's just playing at a really high level at 6-2. Got a must win, 34-10 win over the Saints. And yeah, looking ahead, I think, week 10, we talk about it as the second half rolls on. We're really separating the contenders from pretenders, and the divisional games, when you get them, are getting even more intense. I feel like it'll be great to see Patriots play the Buccaneers. These Thursday games just are terrible. Like you can't get one good Thursday game. But then, Rams 49ers, you talked about the 49ers and how they've had Brock Purdy out. They've had George Kittle out. They have Juwan Jennings out. They've had everybody out on their offense and defense too, not to mention Fred Warner, decimated with injuries. Still, this team sort of finds a way to 6-3, and now a huge test against the Rams, hosting them at home. And then Steelers Chargers, nice Sunday nighter, and then you get Eagles Packers on Monday. I like it.
I like it too. And again, we talk about this as the season goes along. We're into a point right now in November where this is the time of year where, we talked about this last week. The good teams start to separate themselves from the bad teams, start to really jockey yourself for position. You circle it back to the Bears. This is why this Giants game is so important. This is not a very good football team coming into town. This is a game that you absolutely need before you go into a tough stretch, which, like you said, divisional games coming up. You got a Black Friday game coming up there. Like, there's some tough things going on. And you start to look at some games around on the league right now. If you're a Bears fan, you're rooting for the Ravens on Sunday. You lost to the Ravens. Now they need to return the favor, and they need to beat the Vikings as well. They're going to Minnesota. You want them to be able to lose that football game. And, I don't have high hopes, obviously, for the Commanders because they're decimated. The Lions are going into Washington to play them. But Monday Night Football, and arguably the best team in the NFC goes to Green Bay. Go Eagles. like take them out. These are the times where you start to kind of peek in at other teams and other situations to see what's going on and hope that the Bears can take care of business and hope that the other teams in your division can lose. And, there's some other fun games this week. Patriots Buccaneers I think is going to be a very exciting game as Drake May goes to Tampa Bay to be able to play that football game as well. Even the Rams 49ers in the late game, that's going to be a very fun football game as well, as those two teams are trying to keep pace with Seattle, who feels like they might run away with that division.
Yeah. Exciting stuff into week 10 here. Yeah. The Bears, like you talked about, tight, right behind Detroit for that 7 seed, the wild card. Philly and Tampa at the top of the NFC, and then the AFC, the Colts and the Patriots. If you told me at the beginning of the season we would be here, I would have said you're crazy. We got to get Ross out of here to soccer practice, but we also want to touch on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're both, big music fans. I'm very pumped for the White Stripes and Outkast at the top, and they'll be inducted. Salt and Pepper, Bad Company, Cyndi Lauper, Soundgarden. I know Ross's secret pleasure, not to mention Chubby Checker and Joe Cocker. Yeah. You pumped?
I am pumped. I mean,
Does Meg White come out with Jack White?
I should hope so. Why wouldn't she? Right?
Hope so too. Yeah, it's the damn Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. Wouldn't you love a crossover moment where you can get Jack White and Andre 3000 on the stage together and doing something together? You feel like those two guys are eccentric enough.
He's played with Q-Tip before and done like excursions, which is just mind-melting stuff. That would be very cool. I'd love to see a crossover like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Shouts out to Outkast and the White Stripes and everybody else. Do you have a favorite Cyndi Lauper song? Is it Girls Just Want to Have Fun?
I was going to say Girls Just Want to Have Fun. Yeah.
Is that the only one?
That was the one that was in the Goonies, right? Which one was in the Goonies?
Girls Just Want. I don't know off the top of my head. But Joe Cocker, with of course, with a little help from my friends, a great cover from the Beatles, and then He hit a great album, Mad Dogs and Englishmen. He's just an iconic voice. I always think of John Belushi spoofing him too, and then performing next to him and doing all the mannerisms, which again shows my age with Saturday Night Live. But good times. Thanks to everybody for watching, listening in. Second City Gridiron for all your Bears news at Second City Gridiron. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. The audio-only versions are on Spotify, iTunes, etc. Do the same. Like button. Tell your friends. Look up the article. Stay tuned for the rest of the programming this week. I think we got Bears Over Beers at 6 o'clock this evening. I'm at The Real Evan Mack on social media. Ross is at Ross Reed. For now, and Viso Joe. Hey, Viso Joe. For now, we say deuces. Be good to each other out there.
Prediction.
Oh, yeah, don't forget. I predict so as I said, the Giants do not put up 42 on the Bears, but I'm going to say they put up, we'll go with a 24-point game from the Giants, and the Bears put up 34. 34-24 Bears.
I had 34-20 in my head, some garbage time points from the Giants, but I'm right there with you. So pretty similar scores.
Let's go. Get a Bears win. We see deuces. Be good to each other out there. So long, everybody.